What's going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today I want to talk to you about SoundHound. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down what's moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So SoundHound is down 3.67%, 873 the low, 942 the high. So absolutely crazy day, because this morning we did have some good data that was really pushing the market higher, and that was this right here. So we had PPI and also initial jobless claims both coming in better than anticipated. So no different than the CPI, this actually was the best case scenario. So as what Powell mentioned end of last week, the economy is good. Obviously you can't speak on the future, but essentially, since this data did come out, so PPI and initial jobless claims, you have a lot of just tariff tensions. So now Trump and the EU seem to be going back and forth. So of course, increasing in tariffs isn't going to benefit anyone, I think, at this stage in the game. And then you also have just Trump stating that he wants to annex Greenland. So that's also just somehow throwing in the mix just grayness. What does that truly mean? Why? And then you have Russia not necessarily outright denying the whole ceasefire in Ukraine, but they're just saying, like, how's that going to benefit us? So at the end of the day, you just have a lot of grayness in the broader market. So even though the data points this morning were good, you have a lot of tensions, and a lot of analysts at the same time are stating that these tariffs are going to prompt a global recession. So we'll just have to wait and see how that all plays out. But essentially, when it comes down to recent news, there hasn't been anything official from SoundHound itself or any SEC filings. There was that an article came out. So SoundHound AI rolls out new voice features and bets big on cars. So this came out March 11th. So ultimately in here, Ben, who is a senior VP at SoundHound, just went over a lot of the recent updates for the car. So we already know most of that, especially based on the last fireside chat. Aside from that, he just goes over his own personal experience at, for instance, White Castle in Columbus. So I think this is good. It's not coming from an investor standpoint, so I don't think investors would really get that much from this. Rather, other companies potentially would. So upon reading this, they might say, hey, you know what, let's try this out. Like McDonald's, for instance, just throwing that out there. But again, I don't think that this is any good reason to go out and buy SoundHound nor sell. In addition to that, though, there was this that did come out. So SoundHound was named top 100 companies that matter in knowledge management. So this one's a little bit gray as far as if this is a overly good thing, but essentially you have SoundHound right here. I don't think it's in any particular order. It's in alphabetical, I think, but not in like top one or whatever. But yeah, SoundHound just goes over the basic explanation. So yeah, you know what? Why not? That's a good thing overall. Gets their name out there, and there's a lot of random names out here, listed here that I've never heard of. So yeah, who knows on if that's an overly good thing. But shorts right now are returning 774 shares. That is it. So I haven't seen them this inactive in a very, very long time. So maybe that is kind of a good justifying way to think of today being just not really this pullback not being just. Again, that's one way to see it, but 32.55% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 116.64 million shares overall are being shorted. Looking at options, 1.28 million in calls, 1.85 in puts. 62% of all the options being done today are optimistic in nature. And if we kind of look here between 11:25 and 11:30, so a couple of like an hour ago or so, there was 859,000 in premiums. And if we kind of pop this open and take a look at it just to see what big money is doing, it looks as though a big multi-leg transaction, two large transactions, that's kind of the leading sentiment, and both are bullish. So as you can kind of see, 144 and then 132,000, both were puts and both were sold, $9 puts. So that is actually very, very optimistic. So they are saying by, let's say, April the 17th, 2025, so in 35 days from now, that it will be above $9. So again, it's sometimes good to follow what big money is doing, especially if it's this bold. So let me know your general thoughts on that in the comments below. Aside from that, based on this, it looks like there's a consensus for it to be roughly around that $10 range. for that. And then the bears are anticipating for it to be sub 8. So kind of crazy. We'll have to wait and see. If only we had like 2 consecutive days of just no talk about tariffs or anything, I think the market would be so happy and just move up significantly. But we just need clarity. We need clarity on what is exactly happening across the board. Aside from that, these are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market. So you did have a lot of big buying first thing, and that's what pushed it higher right here, because like I said, the data was solid. This data, PPI and CPI, and also initial jobless claims have all been on point. So it's big money's buying that, not really buying into the whole tariff kind of stuff and whatever else. But with it right now at $8.80, trading between this S1 and the S2. So 696 is going to be the next strong support, and then 887 is that must close above point. I think it is fair to assume that we will see a little bit of a recovery near the power hour, but still it needs to close above 887 if you're going to see any sort of a recovery. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. But today, no new analyst ratings, nothing along those lines. On the actual chart right now, it is kind of wedge bound between the ALMA sitting at 890 and then that 200-day moving average, which is sitting at $8.34. So these 2 points. So not necessarily the best, but typically in the past, whenever we see the price get somehow pinched between 2 kind of strong resistance and support points, then it either has a very aggressive push higher or lower. And so hopefully, like I said, Trump and just a lot of the tariffs do subside about that, because then that means we could hopefully see a nice burst higher. But still, I think anyone in SoundHound, you have to be comfortable with a lot of volatility, and even on a daily basis it has like crazy swings. So let me know your general thoughts on SoundHound. Are you buying? Are you selling? What do you think, aside from everything that they've put out, what do you think the next big catalyst for SoundHound is going to be? So let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon where I give buy signals on stocks, options, and crypto. Many of them have been absolutely on point despite the pullback. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.